Okay, we'll call the Selectmen's meeting to order at 7:01. Selectmen's meetings are subject to being videotaped. Your image and voice may be recorded. I think we have the first order. Ms. Diane, did you have something you wanted to talk to us about?
Okay, unless you want to do cable first. I can
No,
do it.
cable is scheduled for 7:15, I believe,
Yes,
right?
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I just wanted to, because we're about 2 weeks away from a GOTMS launch, to test drive for a week before we actually go live. I'm here to request funding for the field tablets. So I've had some communication back and forth with the data systems coordinator, which he says that there is no funding for that, although he won't tell me what the $12,000 in the line item for hardware is going to be used for. He just said that there was no discussion of it at town meeting, that was an extra charge. So I didn't know if the selectmen had any communication on what the expenses were, but in the beginning of all of this, I thought when Larry and I came here, there was going to be some funds available for the program and the launch. And 2 of the 3 inspectors don't use the computers and actually in the town hall very often. So we were looking for tablets.
Well, there's a line item from town meeting. I'd have to.
It's $12,000. I checked with June.
Well, there's
Actually, I
also
brought it.
another line item that's there, it's not a, budget, it's an article
Oh,
that has
okay.
money sitting in it.
Okay. This
Do
one-
we have a
this was-
town,
Report of what?
town report, just the last town report?
Yeah. I can look it up, that on my desk.
okay.
So there was a balance of $12,000 and specifically for hardware, according to June. So I had a quote from Briley on the Surface Pro.
You know, the only 2 places we can get money from is the hardware or ask for a reserve fund transfer. And since the reserve fund transfer would be,
If we spent the article down.
right, so I would say that we should send a message to Richard that this money should come out of his $12,000.
Well, actually, we're the ones who spend that.
Yes, that we are going to spend that money, and if he runs out of money, then he can request a reserve fund transfer.
Okay.
I think that's right. I will say, however, that I don't remember talking about
Fine.
the need for laptops. I mean, we
Okay.
talked about, when we talked about funding, we talked about the
Right.
licensing and so on.
Right.
And this thing.
This was the meeting like way back when we first started, and
Mhm.
that was like 4 years ago.
Yep.
When we talked about supporting the inspectors and
Okay.
being able to do that.
I just would say that let's be sure as we go into this next budget cycle that we have all the expenses of this on the table, because this has been like one of those Russian dolls, you know, every time we open it up, there's been, you know,
No, this
there's
is
been
the
a new
only,
expense.
this is the only opening.
No, there was
Hasn't been.
no, we really didn't, we really didn't understand what the ongoing expense and the licensing expense was, and we had to go certainly for more than I expected. But let's just be sure that we have everything, you know, that we're gonna need in the next year in this budget cycle. And I'd be willing to make a motion to spend, how much is it you say you need?
It's $1,500 per machine,
Mm-hmm.
but that price could be lessened because if we have Microsoft Office license available, I don't know that.
So this tablet they're gonna use out in the field when they
Yes.
go and do inspections.
Right.
And why do they need Office on it? I presume that it's got the GOTMS software.
Yes, it has right, and it needs the Access runtime version on the operating system and
So there is an article from 2009 that has $5,375 that's entitled Computers and Software. And there's an article from 2010 called Computer Replacement, which has $12,000.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So he might argue that this is not a computer replacement. I'm not sure, I don't have the article wording.
And the other one is computers and software.
Software,
Mhm.
which has 5,300, well, as of June 30th.
Okay,
Mhm.
So you might want to check on the balances. We could word it so that it could come out of this.
or that. Those are each,
They're two
The-
separate,
those are separate, those are articles.
two
okay.
separate articles.
And those are in 2009, okay. All right. That's fine, okay, now go on, sorry with the price.
No, that was it. The tablets themselves are, the ones that we're looking at are the ones that the software has actually been tested on.
Mhm.
They are gonna run a test on the Surface Pro 2, which is about half the price of the brand-new Surface Pro 3.
I don't know what service.
Yeah,
pro is.
so, I mean, it's just, they're similar machines. This has, the new one has more capability and.
The new one being 3?
The 3, which is what they've
Is
tested
this
it
an
out on.
iPad? What type of tablet is this?
It's a Microsoft Office tablet.
It's a Surface.
I
it's a
could have brought
Microsoft
mine
product.
in.
What
I
is
haven't-
it?
It's a Microsoft product.
Yeah, I mean, I had.
I mean, just $1,200 for a tablet is a little on the pricey side.
Not really,
No?
no. Mine last year cost $1,500 for the field work, but I needed, I had to buy a docking station, which was more, it was like $2,200 total.
Okay.
But this program runs on Wi-Fi,
So this includes
so
the
there's-
program,
Oh, yeah,
The
we already
licensing
bought the
program, okay,
license.
all right.
We had never had an
Okay.
issue with the license, and actually we're gonna have a lot of money left in that, but because we didn't specify hardware in the article, we can't use it.
So how many of these do you need?
3, one for each of the guys,
Okay.
okay.
yeah.
So that's 3 times, sorry, again,
Well,
you
it's
said.
gonna, let's see. The range will be, depending on $1,300 to $1,500.
And
So
the
there's-
difference between that is the license for the Microsoft or what?
Right, the license for the Microsoft is the Office is $220, and
Okay.
if we don't need that,
Okay,
then
okay,
we may have licenses available.
all right,
And that includes a 2-year warranty.
okay.
Okay.
Can we pull those articles out, because we'll put in the motion? Okay,
So, 2009, Article 30, special town meeting, Article 37, 2009.
okay,
And the other one is 2010, Article 40.
all right. Well, I would move to expend up to $15,000 apiece for 3
$1,500.
$1,500, sorry, $1,500 each, for tablets for the inspectors for use with the GOTMS,
Can we say for 3 tablets?
3 tablets.
Yes. It's actually almost the cost of the money that we're gonna be returning to the town
Mhm.
this year after the article is complete, because the article is for $11,750, and we're not using that. We're only
Okay.
gonna use $6,000.
Okay.
Great. The
I
money to be
second.
expended from one of those 2 articles.
Yes. I second that.
Any further discussion?
No.
Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We have a letter here to Mark Pratt confirming his appointment as a member of the Data Systems Study Group for a term to expire May 31st, 2015.
Second.
Any discussion?
I don't know who this is or what his qualifications are, but I guess we'll find out when we
He
meet.
is
We
the
have-
husband of the inspectional services clerk, Julie Pratt.
Okay.
And-
That doesn't mean.
No, and he
There's
did
the-
offer to send a resume.
Well, he did.
Okay, yeah, okay, then he did follow up with that.
He sounds significantly nerdy enough, because he
In a
uses
nice way.
Linux. Fine.
Okay. A motion to appoint.
So moved.
Second. Any further discussion?
No.
Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Do you want to call them together, because they now have enough to meet, 3 of 5. Did you want to be like a liaison like IAC?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll connect you all by email.
Yeah, just send me their email addresses.
Okay, we have a request to appoint Kelly Ann Smith of Berlin as a member of the rescue squad.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion?
Nope.
Okay, hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, I think we'll set this one aside right now and do one more last. June Poland would like to use a vacation day on Tuesday, October 14th. Should be doing the warrants on Friday, October 10th. Motion to approve vacation.
So moved.
Second, any discussion?
Nope.
Hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, I think we'll set this stuff aside now and move to the cable hearing. I'll have a brief statement just to sort of set out what we're talking about. I'm chairman of the of Berlin's Board of Selectmen, and we're opening up a public hearing for the cable television license transfer application of Charter Communications and Comcast Corporation. The purpose of this hearing is to hear from the company about the proposed transfer of the Berlin cable license from Charter to Comcast. I'd like to welcome everybody who's in attendance, and I'd like to welcome the representatives of the company. I understand you came at short notice. We appreciate your coming. Under applicable law and the current license, the license can't be transferred without the consent of the license issuing authority, which is the Board of Selectmen. This hearing will include consideration of the qualifications of the proposed transferee, including whether Comcast has the technical, legal, financial, and management ability to assume the obligations of the proposed transferor, Charter. In addition, we'd like to confirm for the public and for the record that state law and the transfer application provide that Comcast must assume and comply with all the terms of the existing Berlin Charter license, which is due to expire January 22nd, 2016. We also want to generally hear about Comcast's commitment to community programming and public educational and governmental access, which are important parts of the existing license. We want Comcast as a possible provider in Berlin to be aware of and attentive to the importance of the Berlin public access channel and its role at the forefront of meeting many public, town, and school cable needs. The agenda for the hearing will be as follows. First, we invite an opening statement from Comcast, and we respectfully request that Comcast address the management, technical, financial, and legal ability to assume the obligations of Charter under the current license, and to speak about its commitment to local programming, public educational governmental access, and how these operations will continue or are to change. Then questions or comments from the issuing authority and those attending will be accepted. We are going to also ask for a statement from the Cable Advisory Committee. Before proceeding with testimony from Comcast, I note that we have entered the following document into the public record, and that is the license transfer application of Charter and Comcast, FCC Form 394, and Comcast cover letter dated June 27th, 2014. That document has been available for public review in the Selectmen's office and was posted on the town's website at www.townofberlin.com/Comcast. This hearing was advertised in the Clinton Item newspaper on September 19th and 26th of 2014. I'm going to ask that questions or comments for Comcast be directed through me, and I'll determine which ones are in order. So but it doesn't look like we have a huge turnout for this. So at that point, I'd ask Comcast to speak. Please do come up
Thank
here
you, Mr.
because
Chairman.
that way you'll pick it up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Tim Kelly. I'm the Director of Government and Regulatory Affairs for Comcast. I have an address at 426 East First Street, Boston, Massachusetts, 02127. My primary role in Comcast is to negotiate franchises, make sure we're compliant. And I'm also probably, most importantly, the primary contact for the communities that I have. To give an example of those communities, the city of Boston, Somerville, Cambridge, Everett, Medford, Revere, you get the picture. Metro Boston area. I'm happy to be here tonight to share information about the transaction between Comcast and Charter Communications. We're very excited about this transaction. This will give us alignment with our geographical area, and it makes sense for the company to go forward with this transaction. What I'm about to speak to will complement the 394 that the town's received and put on record. It's not to specifically talk to that. However, we will speak to the legal, technical, financial, and managerial qualifications of Comcast and why we think the transfer should be approved this evening. As you may or may not know, we have a long-standing relationship with Massachusetts. We have over 200 franchises in the state right now. We're proud of the investments we've made in the communities that we serve. Through this transaction, Berlin will be able to take advantage of our advanced services that the current Comcast subscribers have today. For instance, and I'm going to get into some of the products. And pardon my nose, I've been dealing with hay fever and stuff for the past couple of days, so sorry about that. Charter customers will benefit from our best-in-class technology. I don't know if you've seen the advertising out here. Our X1 entertainment platform has about 50,000 videos on demand and over 35 live streaming channels. It's cloud technology. It's the newer technology that you hear about in the technical world nowadays. And that was performed due to an upgrade in our system, the Comcast footprint in the greater Boston region. Switching gears from the products and the video services, probably something that we find to be more important is what we've done in the community. Just this past June, we have a program called Leaders and Achievers. We hold that down at the State House, and it's generally about 120 students throughout the Commonwealth that are in the Comcast footprint that receive a scholarship through Comcast. And these students are generally picked by their guidance counselors and principals for not only their achievement but their leadership abilities. So overall, since the program has been around, we've given about $630,000 away in scholarships. This past April, we had our Comcast Cares Day, where about 90,000 employees nationwide and actually internationally, now that NBCU has been folded into the Comcast family. It's one of the biggest days of volunteerism in the country, and it has been a value add, not only for us, but for the communities that we serve. As well, we're big supporters of the United Way, Girls and Boys Clubs, and other community-based organizations. But something I think we're even more proud of is our Hallmark Community Investment Program, known as Internet Essentials. It's been around for about 3+ years now. It was part of an obligation with the NBC Universal deal, and would have sunset this year. However, we've made the commitment to continue on indefinitely with that program. And simply put, it's for families that have one student that's receiving either free or reduced school lunch through the National School Lunch Program. And it's basically put together to help bridge the digital divide for families that are not connected. It's $9.95 a month. No installation fees, no equipment fees. The family can, if they need to, purchase a laptop at $149.99. The biggest, I think, draw to this program is if you have a first grader that is eligible, and they continue to be eligible all the way up to 12th grade, the $9.95 price point doesn't change. So for a decade, a family could benefit from this for $9.95. I'm hoping, as we talk about this transfer, that you'll see that Comcast can come in, and this is a true measure of, can Comcast come in and fill the shoes of Charter relative to our technical, financial, managerial, and legal wherewithal, and I would say yes. Speaking to the technical, and I think you could lump the legal portion of this in there. Nationwide, we have 6,400 franchises. Locally, as I said, we have over 200 in the state of Massachusetts, most of which, if not all, have been through a transfer. We've been able to come in and step into the shoes of, there used to be a lot of, for background, a lot of smaller providers, and we've demonstrated time and time again that we've been able to come in and take over the systems. As far as financially, we have a market cap at about $135 billion. We certainly have the financial wherewithal at this point to come in and again, fill the shoes of Charter. Greater Boston region, of which, if you were part of it, would probably be the Greater Boston region, has managerial staff relative to our senior leadership team that time and time again is seen as one of the best in the company. Our X1 deployment was done out of the Greater Boston region. A lot of our newer products, newer technologies.
Sorry, X1 deployment means?
X1 deployment is the video platform.
Okay.
A lot of the newer products are tested right out of the Greater Boston region. There are 15 regions in Comcast, and time again, they're chosen Massachusetts is the place where we launch because of the history and the capable senior leadership team and technicians, folks, plant, all of that is why our leaders look at Massachusetts and Greater Boston as a place to do those things. So for those reasons, we believe that we would be able to, again, step into the shoes of Charter and take over. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that the Cable Access Committee has. And just one thing, I did hear PEG access being vitally important to the community. We have very close relationships with the towns and communities that we serve relative to PEG access. And certainly we will abide by the responsibilities and obligations in the four corners of the renewal license, and as we would have to part of this transfer, so that would not change.
Thank you. Are there any questions that people have?
Yeah, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
As a consumer, how do your basic cable rates compare to what Charter's charging us now, basic cable? What's it gonna mean to the average citizen of Berlin? Should they be looking at an increase, a decrease, or about the same?
So, I'm gonna try to answer this. I'm gonna try to answer this by answering your question, but as far as the scope and standard of this review, that's something that you usually don't speak to. I can say that we don't have any plans. I can't speculate about future pricing.
Sure.
It wouldn't be right because they'd be
Right, so speak to today.
But as far as antitrust considerations as well, we have not studied those because we can't, because that would be called, we would be jumping into the shoes too quickly, and we wouldn't be able to do that. So I can't speak to pricing. We wouldn't be, if it was a renewal hearing, as you know, pricing and programming are outside the purview of the issuing authority. So the general public needs to know, even the Board of Selectmen, if they were to try to do the negotiation on behalf of the community, they wouldn't be able to anyway because of where it lies at the federal level.
How many towns do you currently serve in Massachusetts? Comcast.
Comcast, 246.
And how many representatives are there for these towns? I mean, you're saying that
Government
you
affairs.
represent government affairs in the entire state?
Oh, no, we have a very robust government affairs organization.
Okay.
So we have one person that handles the legislative side. In the greater Boston region, there are 8 of us. In Western New England, which is part of Western Massachusetts, I believe there are 2 or 3 representatives. The fact that I could get here tonight, it shows we're very nimble as far as being able to get the resources to a community when they need it.
Does
and
this
there-
mean that you didn't know about this until today? I didn't
That's
hear about
correct.
this. Okay.
That's correct.
I'm sorry.
That was our goof. That's why I particularly
That's my goof.
complimented them on being able to
Amazing.
come here.
So we're
Amazing.
to expect the same type of service as a customer like that.
Absolutely.
Cable's out, you'll be there and,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question,
Yes, go ahead.
your own customer sat surveys, where do they stand? What are your return, what are the results of your own customer satisfaction surveys?
Can you expand on that a little more?
Well, I mean, you're already in Massachusetts for 200 some
Right.
communities. You certainly must have done some surveying with your customers to find out what level of satisfaction they have with Comcast. So I'm asking you what
Sure, well,
those responses were.
yeah, I can speak to, my job isn't in marketing, but I can speak to something that probably be of interest to the Cable Advisory Committee. That's our ascertainment hearings that we do
Mhm.
during the renewal period. So we will survey, and because I have so many communities, I can't speak to certainly Berlin or other communities, but say that in those surveys, a lot of the questions are PEG related and things of that matter, and I use those ascertainment surveys to gauge the interests of the local community relative to PEG. I can't give you a percentage of, how many are happy or not happy. I don't have that information.
Okay.
can you say what PEG is for the people
I'm
who
sorry.
don't
Do
know?
these guys know? It's Public Educational Government Access Programming. So when you turn on your television, there's a local access channel that the cable provider gives to the community, on which the community then programs and add content, which is of public education or governmental interest and benefit.
And we have currently two PEG? Two. So we would have no change in that?
We would,
You would have to keep it under the contract that we currently have with Charter gives us two, so that would continue on, I presume?
yes, whatever's in the license, we have to abide by. Yep.
Can you speak a little bit about your experience as a service provider in some of the weather-related or other issues, things like Hurricane Sandy recovery, service, that sort of thing?
Sure. We can speak to Hurricane Sandy. I can say, so before a storm hits, if there's an imminent threat of a storm hitting, whether it's a hurricane, something that can be forecasted, we have a 1-800 number that we provide to our municipalities. It's XOC, it's our local management center. And it's a 1-800 number just for the municipality. It's got an option, number 3 for municipalities. So if there's a pole hit, if there's a pole down, if service in certain part of town is not working, the community itself can call the 1-800 number. We also have an XOC. It's our Xfinity Operations Center in Chelmsford, Massachusetts. I don't know if you remember seeing the movie War Games, but it's like our war room. It's huge panels. And it basically monitors the health of the network. So if there's a node issue, if there's degradation on a node, we can proactively actually go in and fix things before they go bump in the night. But as far as responses go, Revere Tornado, that's one of my communities. Text, message, phone call, Mr. Mayor, call me, let me know where you need our resources. We bring in the resources we need to get everybody up up and running. Hurricane Sandy, City of Boston, spreadsheet with down drops. We worked right with the community, passed it off to our operations people, and took care of it. The ice storm back in 08, 09, our upper tiered communities, Winchendon, Templeton, Phillipston, up there got really hit hard. Again, we worked closely with the communities to make sure we could get everything up and running. So we're from the area. We know the areas. So that's vitally important when it comes to these situations. And we've really tried to keep, even though we're a huge company, we do focus on localism and that local connection to the community. It's vitally important for us.
Yeah, a lot of the cities you mentioned at the beginning are just that, cities. Berlin is somewhat less than a city, smaller population. You just mentioned some other towns that might be on the smaller side, but just as far as focus, the particular challenges of a rural community with, you know, widely spaced houses, long driveways, things like that. Yeah, I'm assuming you have enough similar towns like that in the state.
I mean, I just rattled Winchendon, Templeton,
Exactly.
Phillipston, Clinton, Bolton, Sterling. These are all communities that I have relationships with. So we get to know the communities really well. So, you know, Berlin's probably not the smallest subscriber community that we would ever have by any means. And then if you look at other parts of New England where we also operate, much smaller communities. So, you know, the rural size is not lost on us at all.
If this merger goes through and we get you, I presume then you have no competition.
That word is loaded.
Well, I'm just asking because right now we can have Charter or Comcast, and once we take Charter out of the equation, there's just Comcast. Just curious if there's some other.
Yeah, there's so much competition out there that comes through the pipe now. Your online video distributors, your Hulus, your Netflix, your Sonys, your satellite companies.
But for,
There's
say,
Aerial.
internet, well, so this is just the cable. I can't bring up the internet portion of this.
Well, that's why I was actually just referring to that. The fact of the matter is that there's no exclusivity in anybody's license, meaning that another provider could roll right into town if they so choose to. Folks at home need to know that we don't have exclusivity to this community, that if another provider wanted to come in and go through the renewal negotiation and do such a thing, that they can.
Too bad nobody wants to.
We've tried. No.
Any other questions? Then may I ask for a statement from Cable Advisory?
Sure. Kevin Diggins, I'm the chairman of the Cable Advisory Committee. With me are Rich Mariani and Bob Fata, the other members. We do have 2 openings, which we're eager to get participation from others in the community. Few of these things were mentioned, but just to try to set the right context here, the franchise agreement only addresses the cable TV. So any of the other forms of service, internet and phone, are regulated differently. So whatever we would discuss as part of this transfer would just be the cable TV portion of it. It is non-exclusive, and our franchise agreement with Charter is set to expire in 2016, which would be in a little over a year, which we have been working with the Charter rep on what that might look like. We were notified that Charter is proposing to transfer ownership to Comcast. All the terms of the current agreement would be honored, and per the state letter of June 27th, the town has the right to contest that transfer, but only based on 4 criteria, which you mentioned, which were the management, technical, financial, and legal ability of Comcast to fulfill its obligations under the contract. The town may not propose amendments or renegotiations renegotiate terms of the agreement as part of this transfer. That's a separate discussion. It would be part of the renewal negotiation, presumably. The Cable Advisory Committee reviewed the proposed transfer along with the material supplied by Comcast, and we determined there were no grounds for the town to contest that transfer based on those 4 criteria. So we, it was voted unanimously to recommend to the Board of Selectmen as the licensing authority that we accept that transfer. And I'd also like to say we're very much looking forward to working with the Comcast team on the renewal as far as the timing goes of closing this transfer and making sure we're well positioned to have those renewal discussions with the right authority at the right company. We just want to make sure we stay coordinated on that.
If the Comcast merger doesn't go through, does this still happen?
This is all predicated on the Time Warner deal
Comcast.
going through. Yep. And then this would happen thereafter.
So that makes it a little bit hard for you.
Well, it's not clear to us exactly how long that federal regulatory approval will take for the merger. Do you have any?
From what I've read in the newspapers,
They paused it.
Q1 2015 is what I read this morning.
I just read that I'm not clear on how this all works, but they're opening it up for comments to the end of the month. If anybody has comments, they can go to the FCC website, put them in.
And if I could, I'd also like to highlight that Heidi from Charter also showed up on short notice.
Thank you.
Yeah, very, very nice of her to support this as well.
We appreciate it. Any other questions?
Sure.
Any other comments? Okay, hearing none. I guess what I've heard is that there appear to be no grounds for us to object to this, and so therefore I would call for a vote to execute a consent to the assignment and the change of control with regard to our cable license.
So moved.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you
Thank you,
guys.
Jen.
Yes,
Thank you all for coming.
out.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms.
No. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you as well.
Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming
Thank you very
down. Yes,
much.
thank you.
Do you have any further?
No.
No. All right.
Any questions or concerns, please
All
don't
right.
hesitate to call, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. So today is the 6th. Right.
I don't know if you want to. The first one, I think, well, you might want to talk about that some more.
Yeah.
Number 8, though, is possibly fairly quick.
Now, let's just, I'm gonna run out and get a cup of water and
Okay.
start. I think
Okay.
we really
Do you
got
want me to
it.
pause
That's
the
anyway.
camera, or do you want me to keep it rolling? I can pause it if you want.
Yeah, pause, we'll be out for just 5.
Okay.
That means he's gonna have a suit.
Okay, we're on tractors.
We already made introductions. This is Lauren Martiska. She's the chair of the Boylston School Committee.
Nice to meet you.
And also on the region and looking over the plan.
I think so.
Okay. All right, so thank you for putting this on your agenda and taking the time to meet with us. We really appreciate it,
Mhm.
as always. We're here to present our information on our status of our efforts to explore full regionalization for our district in Berlin and Boylston pre-K to 12. We're interested in this because we think that full regionalization can result in some of the following things: higher levels of student achievement for Berlin, efficiencies and avoidance of needless redundancies such as 3 sets of payroll, 3 teacher contracts to be negotiated, legal expenses, school calendars, professional development, etc. And flexibility in allocation of personnel resources, and also the potential for cost savings. As you know, the Berlin-Boylston Regional School Committee commissioned a feasibility study last spring, and we presented the results from that study in August, and you also got a copy of that as well. The report cited numerous studies and factors leading to a recommendation to pursue regionalization, but we really felt it lacked the depth of financial analysis necessary to determine the potential cost implications. So in other words, we always want to do the best for our students. That's our role, and so we can see several advantages to regionalization. But we also, being elected officials, we want to do the best for our communities as well. And without looking at that financial analysis that we want to do, without having a consultant to walk us through the steps, I don't think we feel we can be, we want to explore this from top to bottom, inside and out, and we really would like to have this grant, the CIC grant, to help us do that. We're also applying for a grant through DESE as well. We're trying to cover all our bases and all possible options. But the CIC grant needs signatures from both municipalities as well as the regional school committee. So, the school committee did vote 5-1 to pursue regionalization, and as you know, the grant is due on the 10th. This grant would fund further exploration and financial analysis. The Boylston Selectmen have voted to sign, and then we have the signatures from the Boylston Selectmen. But also, this grant doesn't bind us. If at any point along this path, after looking at the financial analysis, after maybe even working on some of the amendments to the agreement, regional agreement, the regional school committee decides we don't want to go down this path, we don't think it's in the best interest, we get off the path. But we always look at how can we be more efficient, how can we better serve our students. So, let's see. The school committee invited Dr. Stephen Hemman, he's the executive director of the Massachusetts Association for Regional Schools, to present information on the process of pursuing regionalization, and he came in and met with us in September 2nd, I think. Anyway, he highlighted the following steps that we would need to take in order to pursue an amended regional agreement, and that would be a decision to update the agreement, which the regional committee has already voted to do. Application for several grants to support further analysis and steps towards regionalization, fund consultants, facilitators, etc. A regional agreement amendment committee needs to be formed. Yes, it is. And we need to utilize consultants. I think I've already said that. We need to review certain portions of the amendment. And we need to develop and implement a community relations process to inform the community. And we need to review and suggest amendments to the current agreement we already have for 6-12. We need to incorporate state laws and regulations. We need to produce an amendment agreement. The regional school committee would then approve the amended agreement. We would seek preliminary approval from the Commissioner of Education on the agreement. Then the towns would both need to vote to approve the amended agreement at the town meeting, and then then final approval is granted by the Commissioner of Education. And this whole entire process can take up to 2 years.
Mhm.
So, the role and composition of this regional agreement amendment committee would be a school committee member from Berlin and one from Boylston. Will be a selectman from each town. Will be a finance committee member from each town and a town administrator from each town. We would need 2 to 3 members of the public from each community. And we would also need the school superintendent and the business manager to be on the committee to serve as resources for us. Let's see.
And at what point would that be appointed in this process?
Well, I would, probably January, so that's something for you two and Walter to think about if you'd be willing to serve on such a committee. The CIC grant, we'd find out if we received it in December. So,
How much is that grant for?
we're asking for 45,000.
And that's to supplement what we know so far, correct?
Right, it's to do that a complex financial analysis. We wanna look at, say, take this year for example.
Mhm.
Here's what our budgets look like this year, 3
Mhm.
separate districts. Here's what our budget would look like if we were a region.
That's $45,000, that's all you're getting? Is it budget
No,
estimate?
no. Well, about 27,000 is for the consultant,
Mm-hmm.
to be on the committee with us, to walk us through the process, and to help do that financial analysis. Think about, some of it is legal fees.
So it's not
Okay.
just a financial analysis, it's a presumption that you're going to regionalize, and they're gonna walk you through the rest of the process.
It's a presumption that you want to study this inside and out and look at it very thoroughly. So again, our hands aren't tied if we decide we don't wanna go down this path, but we felt to do a thorough job. We see the benefits, but we also wanna look at it carefully. Did you have something to add?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've been aware of is that we see numerous advantages to regionalization, but we also understand that the community, the selectmen in Boylston, as perhaps yourselves, and finance committees are very, very interested in what are the full financial implications of this? Because there are cost savings and there are additional costs that result from a full regionalization. The feasibility study that we already had the opportunity to review, while we felt it contained a lot of interesting information, it really did not conduct that financial analysis to the depth that we feel is required to be able to go forward and make that decision as a school committee. In order to apply for this grant, they require that we have voted to pursue regionalization. It does not bind us that we have to be regionalized, but it is a vote that's required in order to move this process to the next step, so that we can conduct this further analysis.
And so, just what would the vote sound like that you're asking for us? Is it to form the regional advisory committee? What is it exactly?
It's a vote to sign the grant.
Just to sign the grant?
And what does the grant ask for?
Well, the way we worded it was a vote to pursue amending the regional agreement. So,
You're asking us to vote to amend the regional.
to pursue amending the regional agreement. That was the wording that the selectmen voted on in Boylston.
Would a vote to simply execute a contract that would supply support for we're required to sign that? Yeah.
You can't change the wording because Boylston signed off on the wording.
I don't know why we can't change the wording.
Because then
This goes to the state. I think as long as we're exhibiting whatever the state requires to do the grant, we're not bound by Boylston's wording. I wouldn't sign Boylston's wording, I have to say.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you know what the grant is specifically requesting?
It's requesting their signatures.
Yes. They, when you're dealing with a region and regional agreement, they want the signatures of
Right.
expanding agreements, and they want the municipalities.
Do you have a copy of what it is you're asking us to sign so we can
Yes.
see it?
Yes, I do.
The signature pages in that.
Okay, thanks. Let's take a quick look.
I know, just.
Do you have an extra copy of that?
Yes, I do.
Mhm. It's rather hard to know what you're actually signing for.
No, I think I finally got to the point.
What page?
Page 9 of 12. It says, as evidence of commitment to the proposed project, applicants must submit documentation of sign-off from each participating entity. If a city by the mayor or city manager, if a town by the board of selectmen. Okay. And
Well, what you're signing on is to amend the agreement based on the project timeline.
I'm not sure that I am, but let me.
Well, first of all, I disagree with the costs here. I read through this whole thing. Let me just tell you how I feel about this.
Go ahead, Judy.
First of all, Berlin loses Chapter 70. This is based on this report. Berlin loses Chapter 70 money. Retiree health insurance, which was not included in this at all, will now have to be paid to the teachers who currently don't get it, but get a higher salary in Berlin to offset not getting it. And I understand that all your teachers have to come up to the highest salary
No, that's not correct.
eventually.
You cannot have anyone go backwards. That's what the regulation says. It doesn't say that everyone has to come up to.
But if you're in one
the highest.
region, you wouldn't have three separate pay charts.
Ultimately, you would not.
Right.
The process is that you can phase it in over time. But one of the things I will tell you is that we also were not fully comfortable with the numbers that were in the feasibility study. That's one of the major reasons that we want to pursue the grant with an expert facilitator who, and there was a process financially of what needs to be done to really get at the real numbers. Because I have discomfort too, frankly, with some of the numbers that were in that report.
The other issue for us is we have a very small group of town employees. You take away the school and we have an even smaller group for our health insurance, which is gonna cause issues for us. Plus, now you're gonna have everyone except the municipal employees having retiree health insurance, which could be an issue. The other part is the losing equal representation. I mean, I read in there all the various ways that you can proportion it, but several people have told me the reason that they elected to go with Boylston originally was because they offered equal representation. And I can't see that Boylston, I certainly would want to stay in that. Not sure, but regional transportation, these numbers, I was on the school committee, I know that it's, does the state have money? We'll give you some. If they don't, they don't. And if you look at this report and you see how much more money we spend at Berlin Memorial, and yet Boylston's scores are so much higher, I can't believe that we can't have higher scores at Berlin without regionalizing. Obviously, Boylston is doing something well at the elementary level that's not being done at the elementary school here. I don't know why those scores are so low and the costs are so high, but that's something that the school committee, the Berlin School Committee should be looking at. Maybe you know. My other one is, have you talked to Northborough, who has the same setup that we have? In fact, when I went and looked on their website, they have a really nice saying that says 10 schools, 3 districts, 1 community of learners. And I think that the regionalization part has been floating around since Diane was on the school. It came up when I was on the school committee.
It was even pre-me. It's been around for 30 years. We've
You know what,
studied it every 10 years.
I understand.
Every 10.
I understand that this is a topic that has come up a number of times in the history. I'm somewhat new on the school committee, and what my interest is that not to revisit or beat on a dead horse, if that's what it is, but I like to make decisions based on facts, and I like to see the actual consequences. I understand the issues and concerns that you're raising. I'd like to see the full financial analysis and other analysis so that we can all make a decision that's based on a thorough study of what those numbers would really be. And I don't think, and sadly, I don't think we got that, and I'm not sure they promised that. But I think moving to this next step gives us the opportunity to go to that depth of analysis so that we can make decisions based on facts. And all of us have access to that information.
But this application is beyond just getting a financial review. As I read it, this application is,
There's nothing in that application that binds you to anything other than a process to examine this.
And ultimately, it's the town's vote. You know, it's
Right.
ultimately the townspeople's
it's
say.
true. But
And-
you are gonna be spending a lot of your time on this, instead of spending it where I feel you should, which is getting the scores up at Berlin Memorial.
There are other elements of, first of all, I think we care a lot about student achievement. That's, if you wanna know what our real passion is, that's where the passion is. However, we're also interested in looking out for the best interests of the towns. And one of the issues that has plagued the school district for many, many years has been leadership turnover. There are a number of inefficiencies in having 3 school districts that make it hard to recruit and retain a business manager.
Can I
It
just
makes
say that there was, Mary Lavin was there for 25 years, John Roy was there for 9 years. I think that if you looked at some of the recommendations here, there are ways in here that you don't have to regionalize, that you can become more efficient. The intermunicipal agreement, if you had started it earlier and had it a little bit,
But when we talk about efficiencies and we talk about instructional leadership, we as a school committee, I've been on the school committee 2.5 years, and I've been through three business directors, one who said they'd take the job and then decided not to 2 days before, and now we've hired a 5th one. So we as a school committee have been spending our time, instead of working on student achievement, hiring business managers. Our superintendent, who we want to be in the schools and show instructional leadership, is filling that void from our business managers. So when we're looking at efficiency and focusing on student achievement, we see that as a real hindrance. When we, the school is so small, we can't easily switch. When you look at the,
Switch.
work with share staff, you know, the intermunicipal agreement, still that's not the most efficient system to get flexibility within staff. Because for each person that you have that IMA with, we had Boylston lawyer, Berlin lawyer, school committee lawyer, 3 lawyers looking at the agreement. We decided it would be best to do 1 agreement per person. So for each employee that you want to do that with, it's a very inefficient and again redundant system. We would look at those options because we certainly need to do whatever we can. But this pre-K to 12 regionalization takes care of all that like that without needing to replicate that process over and over again. I did speak to someone in Northborough, Southborough, because I know they have the similar elementary and then the region at the high school level. But at their elementary level, they have 5 or 6 schools. We have 1 school. And it stifles us. And, you know, I think we have a great administrative team right now that is working to do what they can with BMS and those scores. But ultimately, this is one step we see that would help towards that. And I just look at our own Tohoto. It is clearly outperforming the 2 elementaries.
You know, one of my thoughts as I listened to the conversation and listened to your concerns is just that I don't think I perceive our role here tonight to convince you that regionalization is a great thing and you should sign on to regionalization. I think what I feel we're here to do is to say, let's explore this as thoroughly as we possibly can. Because there are people who are very interested. There are people in your community as well as in Boylston that do want to see a comprehensive, thorough analysis. At the end of the day, you can make the same decision that you might make right now, but there would be a lot more information and facts to back up what if there are tremendous financial advantages to your community. Well, you're laughing, but we don't know that yet without doing that thorough analysis. So I think it's for the sake of people in your community, I think it makes sense to, you know, at least explore it.
I'm looking at this, and you said it's $45,000 grant.
Right. Of which $27,000 is the consultant.
Yep. What I'm seeing here is $27,000 for a consultant to ensure that proper procedures are followed in the process of regionalization. That's $27,000. And I'm showing legal fees for attorneys responsible for transition, $8,000. And I'm showing recording secretary for meeting minutes and posting, $5,000. And I'm showing other expenses for supplies. I'm not seeing anything for the kind of financial analysis that you're asking for.
It's actually detailed, we didn't quite get there in the process.
That's part of the
But
consent.
this is the application that I'm signing.
Right.
And there's nothing in this application that is for the financial analysis that you're talking about. I know what you are saying.
Okay.
But I'm looking at this application, I'm not seeing it.
The process of forming the committee, which is, I'm gonna say RAC because it's really hard to say the whole thing.
Yeah.
The purpose of that group initially is to lead a process to determine the financial viability and the implications of full regionalization. I will tell you, I did not prepare this application. The grant was written very much using the feasibility study that had been done. If I were writing the grant, I might have prepared it differently. Here are the steps that are included in determining the financial viability. And this is taken from material that Steve Hemmen brought to us, which is the process if you're gonna pursue amending an agreement. The financial feasibility would include developing a budget for the fully regionalized district, estimating income for the fully regionalized district, conducting an assessment comparison based on education costs today and when fully regionalized, conducting comparisons of teacher contracts, conducting comparisons of support staff salaries and benefits. One of the issue that you brought up, Judy, is absolutely gonna figure into what the financial viability looks like when you look at the teacher contracts and what's required in both communities in terms of doing that. But that's a part of this process.
I do read individually Berlin Memorial would stand to share the most of its Chapter 70 aid, share being giving it up, and Boylston Elementary would see the highest increase in Chapter 70.
I don't think, I read that in the feasibility study too, and I'll be honest with you, when you put the district together, I don't think money's coming from one place and going someplace else. I think you're making decisions about the allocation based on the needs. So it does not mean that, yes, money's gonna come away from Berlin and go to Boylston or to Tohoto.
And that's because
And
currently
why would you put that in
Berlin
here?
We
is-
didn't put it in there. It was in the,
feasibility study.
Yes.
But it is true that right now Berlin is above its target share. And over the course of the next few years, throughout all the state of Massachusetts, they're trying to get the schools on their target share, which for us is 17.5. Berlin is over it. So slowly, we're gonna be supposedly phasing down to 17.5. Boylston and Tohoto are under it, and slowly they'll be phasing up to 17.5. So right now, as of today, Berlin does get more money from Chapter 70.
Mhm.
And so when you become regionalized, it becomes, all that money comes together, and it's up to, you have to allocate that money fairly. So, it's scary, I see
You
your
still
point,
get,
it feels
when you
scary,
get
but it's
Chapter
not
70
really.
at the region, you still have it allocated to Berlin and Boylston through the state. The numbers are still there.
They're based on enrollment numbers, which wouldn't change on regionalization, it's more trying to get everyone to this
Right,
meeting
but I'm
target.
saying that you still know which town gets what amount of Chapter 70 money when you're at the region. So even if you regionalize the elementary schools, there would still be Chapter 70 money that's specifically for Berlin and Chapter 70 money that's for Boylston, correct? Yes. I know you know how the budget works.
so what are your thoughts?
Other questions?
Well, if we were to amend, I don't know if we can amend the grant at all, it's not been submitted correctly.
Yeah, I mean, who put this application together?
It was put together at the central office.
Yeah, well,
There's a grants person.
It would have been nice, this is, the deadline for this is October 10th.
Would have been nice if
It's
you had
Friday.
sent it to us.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, I think there was effort to try to schedule this meeting.
Yes, but
a
to
while
see it
ago.
before we have a meeting is always good.
Yeah, because I have to say, that project budget for those purposes, I'm not prepared to sign it. I just am not.
Mhm.
It seems to be suggesting that that money is simply to assure that the steps are taken. There's no mention in it whatsoever of all of the very appropriate things that you're suggesting. I just don't feel I can sign it. I don't think it represents what you're talking to us about one thing. I'm reading this application, and it reads very, very differently for me.
I think, and
If
I
it
think
read what you were saying, I'd be willing to sign.
And I think what's happening is there are two parallel purposes, if you will. From the perspective of the folks who are looking for that grant application, they want to feel like this is a community innovation challenge grant We actually applied for it last year and we did not get it because the feeling was we had not sought the support of the selectmen in both of the communities. So this time, I think there was an extra, and I'm speaking for somebody that I probably shouldn't speak for her. My perspective when I read it is, she's trying to put it together as if we're further along than we are, than I believe we are, too.
Yeah, and that's one of the problems I
And
Yeah.
I'm uncomfortable in some ways with numbers that are being cited prior to us conducting what I see as a vital next step, which is the full financial feasibility.
I think that step has got to be done before I would sign this kind of grant, which is basically to fund the structure to move this along, and I'm not ready to sign that.
I think the process, though, of, and this is information again from Steve Hammond.
It's great, but, you know, you want me to sign Steve Hammond's statement? Maybe I will. But, you know, I think I don't know, I mean, I know that you don't have 2 votes to sign this tonight.
And can I also state that this whole process has been very opaque, because I just happened to come upon that you got this report and asked Mary to have you send it to us. Don't you think that when you received it and before you had the public hearing, that the town maybe should get a copy so we can see? I mean, you're talking about we need to be involved, but yet you're not, you know, we get this the night you want us to sign it. I think you need to be a little bit more involved with at least the town of Berlin than you have been. It's all very much happening over there. You don't even have meetings in Berlin anymore, which I find a real issue, because if you're gonna regionalize and we're never gonna see you again, you're always gonna be over in Boylston, I will never be for regionalization.
And I guess what I'm saying, I'm not either for or against regionalization. I think this represents a step beyond where we are right now. I'm sort of without prejudice as to, you know, further financial study and stuff like that.
Well, the problem is that we have no financial resources now to conduct that study if we can't apply.
Yeah, well,
for
this
the grant.
doesn't say that money's for that purpose.
You know what, if you want a
So-
study for financial, put it on the town ballots and let the citizens vote if they want to. I think that's a fair way to do it at the annual town meeting, and you'll find out. If people wanna spend money, it means that they feel that it's a viable agreement.
But they don't, see, the problem is you gotta provide enough information that people would know what they would be voting for.
They'd be voting for what you just read off of
No,
this
they'd
guy's
be
thing.
voting, they might be voting emotionally of whether they think they want something or don't want something without having had the chance to see a thorough analysis, to say, how does this benefit our community?
Well,
Does it?
that's what you should say. You could
And that's
say-
what, I mean, and even if this application said that it was for financial study to see if we could get to this step. But that's not what this says, it really isn't.
I think the state is looking for communities that are serious about
Yeah, well, then maybe the state is saying that they
regionalization.
want the towns to do the kind of study that you talked about
To
before
show
we
that they're
sign this.
serious.
No, they're looking for, if we're looking for those funds to provide the resources to do the thorough analysis, then that's the application that we have to submit.
Well, that's the application, but I mean, it's the the content of this is not, to me, is not representative of the place that you guys are describing.
Mhm.
This is a step beyond the place where you guys are describing. If you're going to spend a lot of the money and a lot of the time on a detailed financial analysis, then I don't see why this talks about having procedural support, legal support for actually doing the deed and so on. It
Well,
just doesn't do it for me.
The reason you have to do that is that a part of the process is taking, because there is an existing regional agreement.
So what you're really talking about doing is amending that agreement.
I understand that.
So a part of the process is looking at the agreement very carefully
No,
to
no,
see.
yeah, no,
And
none of
so
that,
you need
yeah, that's fine.
legal,
I get all of that.
you need legal support.
No, no,
That's a preliminary part of the process.
I get all of that. I've worked on a
So
committee
that's-
that did the last amendments to the regional agreement. I
Okay.
understand that.
Okay.
All I'm saying is, this
I
is not
understand.
something I can sign on to right now.
I understand
For the
that
reasons that I've said.
Because it's, the community purpose of the Innovation Challenge Grant is to show that you are being innovative and efficient. And in this scenario, we need to show that the town of Boylston and the town of Berlin and the regional school committee are all interested in being innovative and efficient.
And we need some information before that.
And they, before they get the grant money, they want to see that all parties that are involved are on the same page, so
So let me ask you a procedural question.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to amend the application, is there a mechanism by which you would have the opportunity to look at that before the 10th?
You'd also have
So
to
we're-
have Boylston have a meeting,
Yeah.
and you have,
Yeah.
it takes 2
You're,
days to post a meeting.
You've asked us, look, we're looking at this on Monday night. Friday is the 10th.
Right, we
So the
didn't
latest
choose
we would
this
have to
time.
do is, yeah.
I apologize, I do understand your point about the timing.
Um,
We were sort of side parties to
I
the
don't,
timing.
I don't see that that's a realistic possibility.
To amend it.
To
prior
go squirreling
the
around with
10th.
this and, yeah, and do something between now. We'd have to meet like Thursday night and then consider something again that we hadn't, that we're seeing for the first time. So I don't know, I would not support that either. I think there's always next year.
Can I ask you just in theory, if this were the application, but it were more detailed, and understanding that it is more, probably farther than you'd want
Yeah.
us to go at this point in time, but if at least had that detail.
If I was being asked to sign a grant for monies to do a financial analysis, broadly speaking, along the lines that you've indicated, and the application clearly set out that that was the limited purpose of the application, I personally would feel very differently about it.
Mhm.
But if it took it still to this length, if it had that financial piece, but it also took it to the length that this application is taking, you would still be. Probably
And what
not.
do you, I'm not sure.
In the sense that they're asking us to do the
At this
legal-
point, I'm
so-
willing to support the idea that more study
Mhm.
needs to be done, and the points that you're talking about, I think, are appropriate points for study. That's as far as I'm willing, that's as far as I'm willing to go until I see the fruits of that study.
Right. And I think what Boylston signed out is because they didn't want school money or they didn't want town money going towards the study. So if you had an opportunity to try for a grant, they were fine with trying for the grant.
Yeah, and I think
So,
this
but I
grant
understand.
distorts,
I think this grant makes it appear as if the town wishes to proceed with regionalization, when actually it's the school committee that wishes to proceed, and that the town really hasn't been, I feel, consulted until tonight about this.
Yeah, I think, that may be, all I'm saying is, what I'm hearing is we need to know this, this, and this. I'm looking at a grant that isn't a grant to do that kind of study. I sort of, and that's really my concern. All the things that you've indicated, I think, are things that are very worthy of study. All of the things that you're indicating, I think, are worthy of study in a forum that has representation from the various town boards that you have
And
talked
that's
about with respect to RAC.
Right.
But, this is not
We
it.
still are
Yeah.
applying for a DESE grant. And should we get that, we still will be doing a financial analysis, we still will be forming a RAC, and I hope that one of you 3 selectmen would consider being on that.
All right.
Judy,
Thank
I
you.
would also just like to ask, because you voiced that you feel like the communication has not been
And I do not want to be on a communication committee.
No, no, no. You figured I was
Good
gonna.
on another committees, thank you.
No, no, I just wanted to ask you, what would you like to see that would, I mean, I totally understand the grant versus the need at this point. But apart from that, you feel like
I
you
think
do
you
not
need
get
a
enough.
presence in town. And I don't know why, I looked at Northborough, Southborough, they meet in Northborough, and their regional committee meets at Algonquin. I don't understand, I understand you're wanting to have fewer meetings, but I also feel that you need to be around town. You need to, I don't know, maybe tell us, like, you know, if you're coming in for a meeting, send us some information beforehand. Or if you get a report that would affect the town, like the regionalization report, you send it to us and say, hey, we're having a meeting to discuss this, maybe someone would like to come. And you could also give something to Mary, and she'll put it on the town Facebook page. And you know the Berlin neighbor page, Facebook page, just, you know, not asking for a lot, just, you know.
No, I hear you. Okay, all right.
Thanks,
Thank
well, we
you.
do
Thank you so
appreciate
much
your
for
efforts
your
on this, we
time.
appreciate your coming down to talk to us.
Yes, thank you
And
so much.
And we'll,
we hope we'll be talking again. And,
yes, and we'll try to do
Mark.
better
Yes.
with the timing of the communication.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for the time.
Did you get one of these?
Yes,
Okay.
Next.
Anybody want to talk to us while we're in a good mood?
Let them go first.
Is there anybody who has any other business with us before we resume the regular agenda? Huh?
Are you on, Tom?
Yeah, it's coming up on a couple of things. so
Okay.
no-
Okay.
No rush.
All right, all right. Okay, you?
I was sticking around to see if you wanted to talk about the 61A proposal.
Oh, yeah, well, that's, I think, the
For
next one
football.
anyway, so,
Okay.
yep,
Number 4.
yeah.
yep. Oh, we're at number 4, sorry.
Oh, you're on.
That's right, it's on your right hand, yeah, that's.
Yeah, okay. So we have somebody to review the Green Acres. Okay, and do we need to sign this?
Yes.
So this is the Green Acres 40B review?
Yeah, and this is the review support for the ZBA for that, correct?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I would take a motion to approve execution of the contract to secure review support for the Green Acres 40B.
So moved?
Second, any discussion or questions?
Nope.
Okay. Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And now, we have the approval of notices of non-exercise. And these are with respect to lots from the Benson Trust, 7 acres on Sawyer Hill Road, and the Reese Trust regarding 12.4 acres. This relates to the town's first right of refusal on land that is in Chapter 61A and is proposed to be sold or otherwise converted from that 61A use. And I think we have, do we have input from the assessors?
I didn't know if you had had time to review it or you wanted any comment, and I could certainly come back at another time. You do have 120 days
Yeah.
to
Well,
act
typically,
on it.
we do put this out to Conservation Commission and ask them if they have any interest in the property. I mean, that's generally the one step that we do, because we do have money in the Conservation Fund. And so I would suggest that we send a copy of this to the Concom and ask if they would,
They should have
What are the-
certified copies.
yeah, they should.
Okay.
Yes.
What are the costs for the Sawyer Hill Road one?
No, $75,000.
75,000?
Mhm.
And what's the?
Well, it's anywhere between 75 and 100,000 per lot, depending on the perk rate.
Oh, per lot?
Per lot.
And how many lots are there?
There is 3 definite, and there
Yeah.
could be a 4th, only if the seller will sell some abutting land to get the
They got
4th.
the fourth.
Yeah, and according to Bill, they did get 3 perks. They have a likely 4th, and they're discussing some land purchasing with West Durant, actually.
And what's the,
So we're talking 3 or 4 times 75 as being the cost.
Yeah, well, it really depends
Up to
on what the
300.
perk rate was, what the ledge, the soil conditions and everything else. So according to Bill, it's likely he could get the 100,000 for the 3 anyways. The 4th might be around the $75,000 range.
Okay.
It's
And what-
all in the purchase and sale,
Mm-hmm.
and River Road is 700,000?
700. And the only thing I wanted to bring to your attention is, you're not supposed to have a P&S with contingencies to
Right.
be a bona fide, but he can walk away from this.
Who,
if he-
now, is this River Road?
The purchaser can walk away from River Road if they don't get the approvals to have this facility or.
So they wanna put a soccer field
Yeah.
on River
Well,
Road.
You know what, it doesn't say what. I mean, all I could find
says-
was information about their other properties.
Well, they did come in and talk to us
Oh,
about
okay,
this
I don't
a
have any
while
of that
ago.
information then.
They wanted to know if the town wanted to kind of go in with them on it.
Oh, okay. So, it just, like on page.
Yeah, I mean, I think
page-
what we should do is check with town council as to whether with that kind of contingency, the notice period begins to run when the contingency is fulfilled or not.
Right.
Let's
And
see.
so, because Larry's not here, I couldn't go through, is this something that is, because there's the yes to nonprofit, there's the special permit for recreational or club, what was it?
All right.
Private club needs a special permit, and active recreation, no,
Right.
which is what this is.
Yes, and the selectmen, when they came in before, were certainly of the opinion that the active, recreation, because that's the character of the activity that impacts the town and abutters and so on, should be the characteristic that trumps all of those others.
Right.
So who decides this, the planning board or the ZBA? If it's, who are they gonna get permits from, the planning
Well,
approvals?
They would see the building inspector
Yeah.
first,
Right.
and then however he reads the
Yeah,
bylaw.
and that one, I think we've already said to Larry that that one should be discussed very carefully with town council, because there were a number of things that arguably can be brought to bear.
Mhm.
The question is which of those you decide to determine. I guess my feeling was, looking at it, and having been on planning board and having had some experience with our zoning laws and so on, and the intention of those things when we passed them was, that you focus, on the real and the
Right.
practical, and
Right.
which of those characteristics is the thing that really has impact.
Mhm.
But we would certainly discuss that with council before we did it. And in that case, that's just a situation in which it's not allowed in the zone. They would have to amend the zoning bylaw in order to allow for that.
Okay. So there's a
So
process.
let's, and we can
Yeah.
refer that to council, because my feeling is, this is not,
Right.
this is really not This is not a
AstroTurf.
notice. It's
Taking up the grass and installing AstroTurf?
Yeah, but this is, yeah. I'm not really speaking about the merits of the project, but I'm not sure that this is a notice effective to start running the 120 days for the reason that you
Yes, there
pointed
you
out.
go. That's all I wanted
Yeah.
to point out.
Mhm. And
So
we'll
we-
check that with council.
Yeah,
So you
there are a
need
couple
to-
of,
Mary needs to check with council?
right.
Yeah, I mean, if you email it to him and then copy me
Yep.
and have, yeah,
Right.
say, if you want, just chat with me about it. Okay?
That's it.
All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
McCully property.
Yes.
Diane, do you have anything to say about the McCully property?
Before you get, not so fast, you guys.
Say it.
The property is in very,
Tear down?
difficult, you said it.
Mhm.
And certainly there's been some talk in the town hall about
Buying it.
future use, and I think at FAC next week, there's gonna be some discussion about what that would look like in borrowing terms.
Mhm.
What is the cost of the property?
I think
Do we
it's
know?
280,
Mhm.
yeah,
And how many acres is it again?
6,
And it's right there in the middle of South Common.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I,
yeah.
this has been discussed, you know, on and
Years.
off
Oh
over the
my
course of
gosh,
the years,
a
and I have to say,
long
I
time.
always thought that that property would be a great addition to, you know, to South Commons, and, you know,
Right.
I mean, I think, obviously, it has to be integrated into our long-term funding, in fact, should take a
Right.
look at it, but I always thought it would be a great idea, personally.
Right. I mean, there are a couple of different ways you could maybe do that, but Rob McKay has emailed, so I think there is interest from the Recreation Committee on acquiring the property, so maybe if we put our heads together and.
Is it bank
come up with
owned?
a strategy, no.
Okay.
No, Bill is actually living in the house at the
Mhm.
moment, because
Mhm.
she's in a rehab center, not coming home, so, yeah.
Okay.
And they like a quick sale, so I think it's something we need to hop on.
Yeah,
Okay.
And
excellent.
Is there a fall meeting coming up? That's kind of what we're hearing.
December 8th,
December 8th?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, we need to open that tonight.
Okay.
Oh, it's number 11.
Yes. we
Is
will
this
be
for
open.
the Dunkin' Donuts? Are we opening for, okay.
Yeah. But, obviously, we could put something else on it. too,
Yes,
so,
very good.
Okay,
Yep, thank you.
all right.
Number 8 is Tom.
There you go.
Just a quick, on the cruiser, we're finally gonna replace, the 2007 Crown Victoria.
Okay,
It's kinda hanging on. But, I know we had some luck selling the, previous car through Muni bids. But on this, I was asking if we could trade it in, really just to kinda be done with it. It's, I've held off on putting any money into it. The electrical system is just about shot. The speedometer works intermittently. There's some electrical gremlins and some other problems. I just have a feeling that anyone looking at buying it wouldn't give us what was offered on the last vehicle. And I do have a commitment from Imperial Municipal Partners where we're buying the other vehicle, where they would give us $500 for a trade-in.
I take it from your description that Bruce doesn't want this.
Bruce
for
does
the-
not want this one.
okay,
No.
okay. I think this requires us, what, surplus, and then I was going to dispose of it as a trade-in, is that right?
Yeah, I think we have to vote it as surplus.
And of nominal value.
Yeah.
Right. All right, I would accept a vote to designate the 2007 Ford Crown Victoria as surplus and of nominal value, and authorize the chief to dispose of it by trading it in against the purchase of a replacement vehicle, right?
Thank you, yes.
So moved.
Any further questions or discussions?
Nope.
All right, hearing none, I'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. I'll take care of that this week. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank
That's
you.
it.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
no.
Thank you, thanks for coming down. You guys have any questions, or?
No, we just, we were interested to hear about the regional information, and then we also, we just were interested in hearing about the Macaulay property where avid volunteers for the recreation
great.
department, and we just wanted to hear about it.
Whenever anybody shows up here sort of unbidden and without an issue, I wonder if their cable is out, so.
No, not at all. Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Okay.
Did you mean to jump over the meeting minutes, number 1?
Yes, because before the camera went on, I said to Judy, asked Judy if she'd read them and was willing,
I'm sorry.
so.
Okay.
Yeah, I usually read your list.
Unless I missed it, that's what I didn't know.
No.
Okay.
All right. This is a question about the DOR Carbonite no-cost municipal data protection grant application. Talk to us about this, or?
Well, the data systems coordinator is asking that you do sign it.
Okay?
And it is a contract that we did receive from the DOR, and I just customized it to put Berlin all through it. And I don't know a lot about the consortium, other than what I could read this afternoon from their website. They seem to be a bunch of assessors, tax collectors, and
Okay.
treasurers.
Now, the last time I'd asked whether, why this was a magical witching hour moment to do this, given the fact that we were putting a study committee together, and, this kind of cloud backup and everything was, I was sure, something that they would be touching upon. Do we have any further information about why?
You
is
just
there some-
appointed the third member of the data.
No, about this,
Being a
and why this needs
placeholder.
to be signed now.
It needs to be signed before the 31st, so it doesn't actually need to be signed right now. It could wait.
Do we have something now that we can read about it?
It's the contract itself. I did have a question that I emailed you, Tom, and I don't know if you had a chance to see it.
When did you email it to me?
Later this afternoon as a
Yeah, no.
update. Okay.
No. And that, okay.
Well, the question was, when you contract with a vendor, let's say, you'd have a concern that they have an errors and omissions or some kind of policy, insurance policy in place because they're touching our server and all of our data. Although I think it's really Carbonite doing it, but
I don't know who Carbonite is.
Carbonite's just a clouding national vendor for clouding your data and everything. But that contract doesn't have anything that talks about.
Yeah, this is a consortium.
Agreed, yeah.
Is this a contract that we're signing, or I thought this was just
Yeah, it's
that
a
we were
contract that we're
interested
signing.
in it?
No, that is the contract that
Yeah.
would sign and give you 1 year free Carbonite clouding backup.
And does it specify exactly what that means?
Not really, and I don't think it said Carbonite in it, but I only buzzed through it.
And do we have any separate information about the Community Software Consortium?
I went to their website, and it's the tax collector for the town of Royalston is their CEO. They are
Is this a private company?
No, it's a intermunicipal arrangement consortium between a bunch of different tax collectors who created this, I think through a CIC grant actually, starting with a bunch of far out western Massachusetts communities trying to get their assessing information online. Bolton, I think, is actually part of the consortium as far as getting their assessors' information up online. We don't do that here. But they also provide different kinds of apps for towns that are small,
Yeah.
much smaller than Berlin.
Yeah, I'm not going to sign anything like
There's no
that
one to
until we
speak to it,
have,
yeah.
until we have
You know what?
a
If-
study committee and recommendations. I'm not gonna do little bits and pieces of things.
Well, if you wanted to have somebody come in and talk to us,
No, No, I don't. I want the study committee to look at it and
Okay?
come up with a recommendation. I don't wanna, I don't wanna do a major bit of it before we have a group of people who volunteered to come in and look at it.
I thought that was my argument, and I got, last time, before we even went, was this the one that you brought up last week, or the
Well,
week?
I really didn't bring it up, but it was forwarded to a bunch of different people through
Right.
different threads. The
I'm fine with
treasurers.
that.
Yeah, I said I wanted more information, and, you know, yeah.
I'm fine with that.
And
That's
now
right, no
I'm,
one
I guess,
really-
now that I have more information, I'm right where you were last week, so you were ahead of me.
Okay.
All right?
All
I
Okay.
mean, I'm not really the proponent of it. Richard is, if you'd like him to come and
No,
speak to it.
I don't.
Okay,
I want
okay.
the
I just
study
wanted to be
committee
clear.
to look at it.
Because he did specifically ask that you would sign the memorandum of understanding.
The record will show that we
Gotcha.
did not.
Just want to make sure you, yeah,
Okay?
yes.
The fire company is requesting temporary signs to advertise ham and bean supper at a number of locations: West Street at 5 Corners, South Berlin at the Rotary, Linden Street at West Street, and Pleasant Street at Central Street. Placing the signs on October 7th and keeping them up and taking them down after the event, which is on October 18th. I take a motion to authorize their temporary placement of the signs.
So moved?
I'll second that. Any discussion or questions?
Nope.
All right, hearing none, take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And then I think we now have to open the warrant for a special town meeting to be held at 7:30 PM on December 8th. Did we check to see the availability of the school for that date?
The secretary says that it's been marked up as, you know, she's holding it for us.
Okay.
Okay.
Waiting for a confirmation that you're setting it for December 8th.
Well,
There's some wriggling though. I'm not sure how much you know about it, but there's a belief that they only need to gather 100 signatures. They've been told back it's 200
whatever.
signatures.
I mean, we'll hold one on the 8th and open up the warrant right now.
So the actual customer came and visited the other day, not the attorney, and
Mhm.
asked
The Dunkin' Donut
owner
owner.
of 35 Dunkin' Donuts, asked if there was a chance that you, and he's not clear, would you be supporting a warrant and their article if the planning board says no? The way, go ahead. The way that Attorney Bobrowski said last week is they're either gonna say yes or we're gonna have 200 signatures.
Correct.
And what he said was, he may have gone off his leash to say that wasn't necessarily how he proceeded. He said, why would we pay for it if we're gonna force the 200 signatures route? So he wants to know, can we sidestep it, have the selectmen go with the article, putting it on the
The
warrant?
answer to that is no. I
Okay.
responded to that, and I said that, one, we usually only sponsor that kind of, and you'd already indicated
I
this
do.
to them, if we're requested by one of the sister boards.
Yeah.
And two, I made the point that if they are in a situation where the planning board is recommending against it, it's going to be to their benefit to go around and get 200 signatures, because they're gonna need to talk to people about it.
And that's, I'm not arguing,
And
I'm
I-
just saying, he said, why
That's
would
what
we?
we said.
Why?
That's what we said. And
Yeah.
I spoke to them directly, and I spoke to them Saturday down at the dump when they were collecting signatures about
Oh,
that.
that's already started.
Did they bring donuts and coffee?
They were out of them by the time I got there in any event, but anyway, so I did, and I did speak to them directly, so
Oh.
that's what it is.
Okay.
We won't sponsor that. no.
Okay,
Okay?
yes, thanks. So you're opening it?
And we are opening the warrant for the December 8th meeting.
Do we have to take the vote officially?
That's what, yes, I was about to
You
say.
were putting the paper away.
No, I was just putting that particular motion away, but the warrant. I would accept a vote to open up the warrant for the December 8th, 2014 town meeting. We will keep it open until we discussed this last time.
Until we close it.
I think we have to
give a date.
We talked about this last time.
Eloise says she has to have open
Oh, voter registration.
voter registration.
10 days or 14 days before the town meeting.
Yeah, but that doesn't have to deal with
No.
closing the warrant. I think we need to do it 2 weeks beforehand.
It has to
To
get
allow for mailing.
printed
Printed
and
and mailing.
mailed.
I think, yeah, I know, what we were talking about keeping it open till the first weekend in November, which actually gives us a little extra time, but
Okay.
that still gives people 3
So
weeks to deal with it.
November,
What
We
meeting is
will,
that?
November 3rd.
yeah, we'll close it at 8 o'clock on Monday, November 3rd. That's what we talked about last week, I think. All right,
So you should probably also send an email
To
out
all
to
the
everyone
departments.
and tell them that if they have something they wanna put on it, they need to do it before
Yes.
November 3rd.
Will do.
okay, any other new business or?
ID cards. So the fire department has an ID card maker. And he, John Johnson's very feminine looking in this. He asked me,
Just for the formality of it, do you wanna vote that town meeting warrant 2-0?
Yes, yes.
yep,
Done, thanks.
he asked me if, I think that anyone else should be having an ID card, which I think could be the assessors and the inspectors verifying that they're town employees,
Because they are going out to the public and,
yeah.
Highway maybe.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, anybody who,
Rescue, especially if they're coming in plain clothes.
I think that police and fire, well, I would presume rescue, but, yeah.
So you're asking that we establish a policy to require people to have one? Is that what you're
Yeah.
asking for?
Yep.
Also maybe the Council on Aging Meals on Wheels, right?
I would guess that they're going door.
So the purpose of this is identification to the general public, not access to the building or something like that,
No.
okay?
Although that's a feature of the card machine, he says, that does have the ability to have a magnetic strip if you ever went that way.
Well, I think that's another discussion.
Yeah, no, I just wanted,
Yeah.
you know, that's what I,
At this point, it's just a matter of having some sort of identification for people who
are public facing.
are public, yes.
Okay. And you said police?
Police,
Surely police have, don't they have those things they call badges?
They should. Rescue, fire, assessors,
Mm-hmm,
inspectors,
mm-hmm.
and Mary said Meals on Wheels.
I'm not sure.
Highway,
Mm,
maybe pulling up in a truck is enough, or,
Well, they usually wear highway t-shirts, don't they? I mean, why not?
dog catcher,
Sure, I didn't realize this was that much of an issue, but.
animal inspector who goes and does barn inspections.
Yep. If what we're saying are, people who are sort of public facing and are gonna affirmatively, be out there dealing with the public, then yeah, those would be included.
Transfer station,
No,
No,
no, people go there, so,
they don't go to people.
yeah.
they
Okay.
pay people for things that they take it or leave it, though, don't they?
And how are we gonna pay for this? Do we know what the expense of this is?
No, I will ask Bruce.
Okay.
They have the software and they have the printer, so I guess it's probably just whatever these things cost.
Okay. I mean, let's just
Oh,
find
who-
out.
Who pays for that?
Well, that's what he's asking. Ask Bruce what the cost is.
I will, but who do you perceive would pay for it?
Us.
Because it's not built into our budget.
Well, why don't we find out the cost first
Okay.
and worry about,
So-
can put it on the special town meeting.
We could, we could.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, as far as policy, yeah, I'd be willing to make a motion that we establish a policy that those persons listed, positions listed, be given a town photo ID. And that the enactment of that policy condition upon our determining how to pay for that in the next week or so, all right?
so moved.
Second. Any further questions, discussions? Hearing none, I'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay?
Well, then we'd have to decide on colors.
Who's gonna take the pictures?
All right.
I think Bruce has
The camera?
camera, or a
I
camera.
think that's why they're inexpensive. They
I'd
all
like
have the
I'd
same
like her
picture.
picture. I'd like to use that if I
Yeah.
had to have one.
You'd wanna be John Johnson.
John looked like that, yeah.
All right. Is there anything that you're interested in looking at in the miscellaneous correspondence?
What's the request for transfer for a pump?
It's just it's a possible coming down the road reserve fund transfer. I don't know any details about that. All I know is what she emailed, which was there's an up to $6,000-ish sum that could be needed for a reserve fund transfer for a pump for the municipal building.
Is that for the HVAC? Is it for the water? You don't know.
She didn't give any detail on it.
Who
Okay.
is she?
June.
Okay.
It was a heads up, but it
All right.
hasn't come from anybody yet.
So this Assabet Valley Regional Vocational School District Collective Bargaining Representative, isn't that Walter?
That's Walter.
And he did not go to the September 24th meeting. So they've appointed, I guess, no rep from any town, it's on letterhead in there, but no rep in any town showed up for this collective bargaining. So their financial director is going to act as the rep for everybody, says the letter, and they're gonna proceed to collective bargain without town reps. It's in the miscellaneous folder, 5 deep.
Hmm.
Want me to get it up here?
No, yeah.
It was oddly worded.
Well, I would think that they need to notify the reps that there was gonna be bargaining.
There was a mandatory, so they say, way before that, Tom,
Okay.
meeting for September 24th where the representatives were to appear. Is this miscellaneous? Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, that's not quite what it says. It says, we were invited to a meeting to be held on September 24th to elect a representative of the member communities to represent them. So, to represent them on the committee. Ms. June Hubbard Ward, Finance Director and designee for the town of Northborough, volunteered to be the representative. Since no other town or city representatives attended the meeting, Ms. Hubbard Ward will represent you in the bargaining process. So I think,
But there was an email that I sent following your meeting before that, where I told the superintendent and Walter, the board agreed that Walter would be the town's
yeah, no,
representative.
I know that, yeah, I know that. So, I mean, I don't.
That's fine with me.
It's fine,
I don't think Walter's gonna be upset that he doesn't have to go.
no,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
So on October 27th, this is H,
H. Tell me what it
the
is.
Hampshire Council of Governments, it's the electricity program.
That's right after what you just put there.
Okay.
It's right after this. There you go.
Okay.
So, I don't know, a year and a half ago, Eloise and I went to a presentation over at Central Mass Regional Planning about Hampshire Council of Governments put on. They're a consortium of towns out in Western Mass.
Mm-hmm.
And they've developed a whole bunch of things, and one of them is this electricity program where you can sign your town up for it, and it's not the transmission part of it, but it's the generation part that you're buying. And you can also have your entire town signed up to go with them for the generation of electricity. And when we read that National Grid's rates were going up 37%, we thought that we would ask them to come in and give a presentation on
Sure.
this.
And are they?
They're coming in October 27th at
Okay.
7:30 PM.
Okay, great. Sounds great.
Okay, just, that's the rationale, was the huge increase that National Grid has actually been granted.
That's because you don't want a damn pipeline.
I know, isn't it?
Yeah,
Can't
right.
win.
Okay,
Cable set boxes, okay, what's that? I just had to go
Kevin-
call up.
Kevin Diggins asked, right, what everyone else is trying to do is to get set boxes, like what you just did with,
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, did you ever get it to work?
Right,
Not
what's the
yet,
update?
but I haven't been up there.
Oh,
so, he wanted a head count of how many TVs needed these cable boxes.
oh, here at the municipal building?
Anywhere in town government where there's free cable. The only ones that I've heard of are the police department, which was being fit today, and I guess, highway?
The meeting room up here has.
Well, yeah, but I think that's already being handled, that's already been
Oh.
accounted for, and then,
Okay.
and highway and police.
Okay.
I asked the school and I asked the library, I'm asking anybody to get back to Kevin, so he has, I don't know
Okay.
why we don't know how many free cable TV boxes we have in town.
Well, we don't have to have a box now.
So he wants to know how many boxes we would need to hook into,
Yeah.
that's what that is.
Okay,
And what was the data system coordinator flash?
That Dan, the plant will be briefly, unavailable, and so there's an interim support vendor who will cover for him
Okay.
for a short period of time.
okay.
What's a conference on Affordable Care Act impact? So this is the something Mass Human
I
Resources?
think that one's in Boxborough, yeah. Just something the MMA pushed out.
Is this something that the town needs to know about?
They didn't spend a lot of time on it. Probably.
That's this one?
Nope.
Yeah.
That's not it. Who's towards the end? Let's see, city and town. Go right after city and town.
Okay,
That.
okay. That's at Cape Cod
Oh, I got confused
Community
with another one.
College.
Oh, really? So you'd have to.
Have a nice drive. Oh, I wasn't looking to go.
Thursday, October 16th. How the Affordable Care Act will impact employers in 2015. And that is not International Public Management Association for Human Resources.
Nope, maybe somebody else.
Okay?
We'll pass that one to Dennis.
And what's town council advisory about drinking water and wastewater infrastructure? It's S, it's just,
It's second to the last. It's Coltman and Page. There it is. I didn't think it was us, because I think it needs pipes and ground for the town.
if you have a
Yeah,
public
municipal
water supply?
infrastructure.
Yeah,
Wow, okay.
yeah, funding for it.
I just wanna pitch something this up.
Okay?
Neither of those issues needed to.
Neither of those.
Okay.
So next week, we have PSS&G coming in,
Yeah,
Yes.
and we're gonna try to
and
start.
we've confirmed that?
Yes, yes, thank you. Those companies really hustled today.
Yeah,
And,
good
I
for them.
apologize yeah.
No, no,
Well,
that's fine. It was a good test.
It was.
Okay, so.
Okay, so we're gonna try to start sharp at 7
7.
because we've got quite a
That's
bit
right.
on next Tuesday, okay?
Yep.
I think Walter's back, right?
Yes, that's, yeah, we're all back together.
All right,
All right, I make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
We'll adjourn at 9:05.